Hi, everyone. You'll have to excuse the look today. I guess I'm looking a little bit like Miss Cleo. um, my name is Erica, your favorite host and sexpert. Um, I got some braids done for EDC Orlando. Yes, your favorite sexpert is an EDC attendee. So excuse the look for this week. I will probably have a normal hairdo next time you see me. But, anyways, I'm Erica Rivera, and welcome to a new episode of Sexpertease. Tonight, we're diving into something so many people feel but rarely talk about, and that's the emotional load that quietly drains our desire. We often think that sexual burnout means something is wrong with our bodies or our relationships, when in reality, it's usually our minds that are overworked, overstimulated, and completely overwhelmed long before intimacy even enters the picture. If you've ever found yourself too tired to connect, too stressed to feel desire, or too mentally overloaded to even think about pleasure, you're not alone. Emotional burnout is real, and it has a profound impact on how we show up in our relationships and in our own bodies as well. So, tonight we're going to break down how burnout forms, why the mental load hits some people harder than others, and how stress reshapes our ability to experience intimacy. This episode is not about blame, it's about clarity, compassion, and understanding the invisible weight so many of us carry. So take a breath, settle in, and let's begin this conversation together. We live in a culture that glorifies productivity, but rarely honors rest. When emotional exhaustion takes over, it doesn't just drain your energy, it slowly silences your desire. So many couples believe their intimacy is fading because something is wrong, either with them physically, but in truth, it's often emotional burnout. It's emotional burnout in disguise. Stress is one of the most common libido killers, yet few of us are taught how deeply our emotional world impacts our erotic one. Burnout creates a fog between what we feel and what we want. When you're carrying the weight of constant decision making, bills, deadlines, and caretaking, it's hard for your nervous system to shift gears into playfulness or sensuality. The body may be present, but the mind, it's still running lists. And when your mind is overworked, the libido often shuts down to protect your remaining energy. This episode is about understanding that gap, why mental fatigue suppresses desire, and how to begin reconnecting to your body once again. Because intimacy isn't about performance, it's about presence. And presence can only exist when the emotional load starts to lighten. Emotional burnout is more than just being tired. It's a state of chronic emotional depletion where your inner battery no longer recharges. It's what happens when you've been on for too long, constantly giving to work, family, or others without replenishing yourself. You might feel numb, irritable, detached, or even cynical about things that you once enjoyed. The tricky part is emotional burnout doesn't always show up in obvious ways. You may still be functioning, showing up, smiling, checking boxes, but internally you're running on fumes. Your relationships start to feel like chores, and even physical affection can feel like one more demand. This is when the nervous system starts conserving energy by suppressing arousal. Desire is a form of vitality. And your body won't invest in pleasure if it feels unsafe or overextended. Recognizing burnout early isn't selfish, it's self-preserving. Every relationship carries invisible labor, the unspoken, ongoing tasks that keep life functioning. Remembering birthdays, managing emotions, planning meals, soothing conflicts. This mental load disproportionately falls on women, parents, and caregivers. It's exhausting, and because it's rarely acknowledged, it becomes a silent intimacy killer. When one partner carries more of the emotional logistics, resentment quietly builds. The overloaded partner doesn't lose energy, they lose capacity for pleasure. They might start associating touch with obligation rather than enjoyment. Emotional inequality slowly erodes romantic connection. Naming the invisible load is the first step toward balance. When partners begin to share responsibility and validate each other's effort, emotional bandwidth increases. That's when intimacy can reemerge, not from pressure, but from partnership. You can't leave stress at the door if your mind is cluttered with unresolved emotions. Many of us carry frustration, anxiety, or anger right into the bedroom. And we expect the body to instantly switch into desire mode. But arousal requires a clear emotional space. If tension dominates, connection feels impossible. Resentment is the most common form of emotional clutter. It's that it's that unspoken story that says, I do so much and you don't see it. Over time, that emotional noise drowns out curiosity and pleasure. The more cluttered the mind, the less room there is for playfulness and vulnerability. Addressing emotional clutter means communicating before it accumulates. It's okay to say, I'm touched out, or I need to decompress first. Intimacy thrives when we allow emotional truth to coexist with physical connection. The body's arousal system can't operate under threat. And I've mentioned that in previous episodes. When we're stressed, our brain releases cortisol, which suppresses dopamine and oxytocin, which are the chemicals responsible for desire and bonding. It's biology's way of saying now is not the time to reproduce or play. Now is the time to survive. This is why you can't force yourself into the mood. Arousal is a luxury response. It appears only when safety and relaxation are present. When your nervous system is stuck in fight or flight, you're wired to escape, not engage. Healing starts with awareness. When we recognize that our stress response hijacks our arousal response, we stop blaming ourselves or our partners. Instead of asking, what's wrong with me? We start asking, what do I need to feel safe again? That's the question that reignites desire. Ah, the too tired myth. When people say they're too tired, it's rarely about physical exhaustion. It's emotional depletion. The brain is still processing 1,000 thoughts, even as the body lies still. When your emotional reserves are empty, pleasure feels like another responsibility, not a release. This is why so many couples misinterpret fatigue as rejection. It's not that your partner doesn't want you, it's that their nervous system has nothing left to give. Arousal requires energy, and that energy depends on emotional rest. Reframing too tired as too full can change everything. It invites compassion instead of frustration, creating space to rest together, cuddle, or reconnect emotionally before expecting physical intimacy. Many of us equate being good lovers with doing it right. We strive to please, perform, and impress, but perfectionism is the enemy of pleasure. When intimacy becomes another to-do list, desire shuts down. The sensual self thrives in freedom, not evaluation. High achievers, in particular, struggle here. They carry the same perfectionist mindset from work into their relationships, measuring their worth by outcomes. But intimacy is not a project, it's a process. When you release control, curiosity returns. Pleasure isn't about how you look or how you perform, it's about how you feel. The best foreplay is presence. When we stop performing, we finally start connecting. When two partners live in constant stress, desire can become mismatched. One may crave closeness for comfort, while the other withdraws for survival. These opposite instincts create friction that often spirals into guilt and rejection. Burnout doesn't make anyone less loving, it simply alters how love is expressed. Without conversation, both people start writing painful stories in their heads, like I'm unwanted or I can't keep up. But when couples name the burnout rather than blaming each other, compassion replaces confusion. A simple statement like, I'm overwhelmed and I need to recharge before being intimate. Just that alone reframes distance as care and not avoidance. When partners learn to see exhaustion as information, it's information, and not as an insult, they protect their bond. It's not about avoiding sex, it's about rebuilding the emotional safety that makes desire sustainable. Intimacy isn't only physical, it is the daily practice of being emotionally reachable. Small, frequent gestures like a morning hug, a gratitude text, or 5 minutes of eye contact can refill the emotional bank account. These micro moments reestablish connection long before the clothes come off. So, couples who prioritize appreciation over obligation keep the nervous system in a receptive state. Validation acts like foreplay, it tells the body, you're safe here. When appreciation replaces resentment, the body naturally softens toward pleasure again. Think of emotional intimacy as ongoing lubrication for the relationship. Every act of kindness reduces friction, allowing desire to glide back in effortlessly. Our arousal system and stress system share the same highway. One must slow down for the other to flow. Practices like deep breathing, grounding, touch, or mindful stretching tell the body it's okay to shift from vigilance to vulnerability. Mindfulness doesn't have to be like formal meditation. It can be as simple as feeling your feet on the ground, noticing your partner's warmth, or taking 3 conscious breaths before kissing. These tiny resets retrain the brain to associate stillness with safety. When couples co-regulate together, slowing breathing or syncing heartbeats through cuddling, the chemistry of desire returns naturally. Calm is not the opposite of passion. It's the foundation that passion grows from. When life feels heavy, we often lose our sense of sensuality. But sexy doesn't always mean wild or spontaneous. Sometimes it means tender, quiet, and emotionally attuned. Compassion itself can be erotic when it makes you feel seen. Try redefining intimacy as any act that nurtures connection. A shared bath, a slow meal, even laughter under the blankets. These softer forms of closeness remind your body that pleasure can coexist with exhaustion. When you stop chasing a performance of passion and you start nurturing comfort, desire finds its way back in. It's not forced, but invited. That's real sex appeal. Safety turned into spark. Preventative intimacy is better than crisis management. This is something that I harp on all the time. You can ask my friends, you can ask my clients. Schedule emotional check-ins. The same way you plan dates or chores. Ask each other, how are we feeling as a team? Rather than, what's wrong with us? It shifts focus from blame to bonding. Regular check-ins keep resentment from silently accumulating. They also remind partners that emotional labor is shared work. It's not just, on one partner. When you talk before tension builds, small misunderstandings, they stay small. These conversations don't have to be long. It could just be 5 minutes of honesty that beats hours of avoidance. Emotional maintenance is sexy because it proves you care about connection, not convenience. Healing desire starts with individual restoration. All right, so of course, like anything else, it starts with you. Journaling, therapy, solo walks, or creative outlets, they all help refill your inner cup. You can't pour intimacy from an empty one, as cliche as that sounds. Saying no to obligations that drain you is also saying yes to future pleasure. Boundaries aren't walls, they're energy management tools. Each boundary honored reteaches the nervous system that your needs matter. Self-care isn't selfish. It's foreplay for your own vitality. When you treat yourself like someone worth resting for, your body responds with gratitude and eventually with desire. Sometimes, burnout runs deeper than what a bubble bath can fix. I completely understand that. Therapy, though, that can offer structured space to process resentment or to process trauma or chronic stress. Couples therapy transforms blame into teamwork by helping partners speak the same emotional language. Sex therapy, in particular, bridges the gap between body and brain. It normalizes the loss of desire as a symptom, not a failure. Working with a professional can dismantle shame and replace it with curiosity. Reaching for help isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It says we're worth the effort to get better. Healing thrives in the presence of guided support. Recognizing emotional burnout is the first act of self-love. It means you're listening to your body instead of punishing it for slowing down. Awareness is where change begins. Rest is not rejection. It's an invitation back to presence. When partners honor each other's limits, they create room for authentic desire to grow again, not forced by pressure, but nourished by care. Thank you so much for joining me for this deep and honest conversation. It is one of our shorter episodes, but we do have a part 2 coming up next week because I really wanted to dig deep into this because it's something that so many people and so many couples go through. If tonight's episode resonated with you, remember, emotional burnout is not a failure, it's a signal. Your mind and your body are asking for space, support, and gentleness. And healing starts with awareness. For those who want to go deeper, tonight's Intimacy Insight tip sheet is available on Patreon. So you can visit me on patreon.com/the Erica Rivera. This is a practical guide for understanding emotional burnout, managing mental overwhelm, and reconnecting with your body at your own pace. And if you'd like personalized support, I also offer one-on-one virtual consultations where we explore your specific challenges around intimacy, communication, and pleasure. And if you want to inquire about that, here's my email, sexpertease@e360tvlive.com. I will see you next Tuesday for part 2 called Rest as Reclamation. Until then, take care of your mind the way you want your mind to take care of your desire. Have a wonderful night.